work.
Was there anything else that we didn't get to talk about that you would like to mention or say?
Well, one part of my experience, which I suspect is not that common among people who've grown up in the developed world, is that I did spend a certain amount of time in the third world, a certain amount of professional time, as it were, and in particular in Ghana, in West Africa. And so that's somewhat unusual, and it only happened because at Sussex, we had a sort of exchange arrangement with a university in Ghana. But I think it was for me, an interesting part of my experience.
How do you think that affected your worldview and perspective?
Well, I think it certainly affected my view of how the developed world, meaning in my case the UK, should interact with their former colonies like Ghana. I think the educational system in Ghana was more or less a carbon copy of the British version. And so when I was there, I obviously had to follow that, and I had to teach a standard syllabus in quantum mechanics, solid-state physics, or whatever. That didn't really seem what was needed there. In a country like Ghana, you have to remember Ghana is it's sort of, I don't know what you call it, it's among what people normally think of as third world countries, it's sort of intermediate rank, really. It's not among the very poorest, but also not among but it's not like, say, India or Brazil, nothing like that. So that, from the point of view of technological development, they're sort of middle rank there. And what very seriously needed is many more people than currently are there with basic technical skills. Really pretty basic. Motor mechanics and things like that. When they held while I was there, they held a celebration for the 25th anniversary of the University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, which is where I was based. And so they decided, among other things, that they wanted to erect a flag, the university flag. If you were doing this in, say, the UK or the US, I think the odds are that you would get you'd go out to a local firm to get the flag sewn, and you would go out to some local engineering firm to get the flagpole erected, and so on and so forth. That doesn't exist in Ghana. So it was the flag had to be sewn by the Department of Fine Arts of the university. The flagpole had to be erected by the engineering department. And there are lots of things like that. The university has to play a role that it doesn't have to play in technologically developed countries. And so I think you really need a lot more people at a sort of very basic technological level, and the university has to be prepared to engage in training those people far more than it was doing, at least in my experience when I was there. The courses, I think I was not the only one who came to this conclusion. There were other expatriates who've been there much longer than I had who came to the same idea, and some of my Ghanaian colleagues also. So you need much more sort of hands-on courses. Most of these kids, I actually volunteered. My second time out in Ghana, I volunteered to supervise the first year labs. And I came to realise that these kids came from the villages around Kumasi, most of them not even from the city. What had they seen, as it were, in the way of technology during their high school training, say? Basically, the most sophisticated, most technologically sophisticated item of traditional Ghanaian technology is the hand loom. And by Northeast Asian standards, the Ghanaian hand looms are pretty primitive, frankly. They go from there pretty much direct to the motor car. So the motor car to them is liable to be just a black box. And to many of my students it was. They had no they didn't have the experience of just playing around with all sorts of, not even a radio, but things like, I don't know, can openers. Oh, can openers probably did have, but slightly more sophisticated kitchen tools and so forth. So, some of them, nevertheless, were very smart and managed to pick it up very quickly, but others really didn't. And you have to give them that kind of hands-on experience of playing around with mechanical things. And some of my colleagues were actually quite involved in trying to develop an alternative syllabus along those lines. And I think that was very
interesting.
There's probably a much deeper political, sociological lessons I could have learned, but I'm afraid I didn't, because I was mostly focused on what I was doing.
In teaching. Yeah, it's in a way like the universities would play a larger role that perhaps in a country like the US would be specialized to perhaps. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Interesting. I wonder if that's still true and how you could do something about that.
Yeah.